So today is a very exciting day because I'm joined by the man behind the mic, is David Montez from Chronic Victory Podcast. He has an infectious go-get-it mentality, and since being forced to leave his prior career in 911 dispatch, has focused not only on his own health and recovery, but has contributed to and influenced the health and recovery of so many around the world with the creation of Chronic Victory Podcast. He has stacked up 2,500 downloads of his show, over 2,000 followers on Instagram, encouraging people with illnesses, be them visible or not, to create new goals, achieve them, and take no prisoners in the process. He's only been doing that since September, and he is about to join me now, I believe. Oh, hi!
Hi!
From your podcast, I am familiar with the fact that you have multiple chronic ailments. You have, and correct me if I'm wrong or missing any out, fibromyalgia, POTS, PTSD. You have more?
I guess you could call it. So there's the joint hypermobility, but it's not Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I don't think a lot of people know that about me. So I have a lot of joint issues. And from what I understand, that goes hand in hand with POTS. It's like the way my doc described it was like you have POTS as like picture a bike wheel. And then all the different spokes of the wheel are different symptoms like joint hypermobility, fainting, feeling lightheaded. And we don't really know, like not everybody has those different spokes as a part of it. And some people have more than the other person. So I have joint hypermobility, I guess we'll call it disorder. And then just what some people would just call chronic pain or idiopathic pain, where it's just unexplained. But I also have the Fibro Diagnosis that you mentioned, which men can get fibro.
It's not just for girls. It's not just for girls. Break that.
And I'll admit, when I was like 22 and I started to feel wonky and things were getting weird, and you would hear fibromyalgia back in like 2010, I would immediately think to like middle-aged woman, and I'm like, damn it, I'm a man. I'm supposed to be a man. Like men don't get fibro, but you do. That's what it is. And it doesn't really matter how or if I have it. It matters what I'm going to do with it and about it, you know?
What came first though, out of all of those diagnoses, what came first? At what point did fibromyalgia come into it?
I remember the exact day. It was in June of 2010, and I was out on patrol, background in law enforcement, and I was with my partner, and it started off as like where I had broken a rib in the past, I think a year or two before that. And it's really like this rib pokes out kind of like almost like my knuckle, like that. Like it's really obvious. You can't tell right now, but so where that was, it just felt like a cramp, but just pain. And I couldn't, you're touching it and trying to like, what is that? Like just trying to get rid of it, and it just never went away. And I didn't think much of it. And then as time progressed, it became like, okay, now my whole sternum hurts. And then it became like, now it's in my arms and my legs and all this and that. And then it's like full body. And pretty soon I'm laying on my limbs and just putting pressure on things that hurt. And I don't know why, which is frustrating. But if you rewind to when I was, I'd say 14, 15, teenage years in high school, I think I had POTS back then, and people didn't know about it back then. Because I'm 31 now, so if you go back like half a lifetime ago, I had these, I live in Wisconsin in the United States, where we have all seasons, and it's very intense. Like we make fun of the people out west who it's like, oh, it's 60 degrees, and they're wearing like winter jackets and stuff, and 60 degrees here is like shorts weather and no shirt on. Like you're out there sunbathing. So like I didn't do, I was a pretty healthy and strong kid. And then all of a sudden I didn't do well with the weather changes, and I sweat too much, and I got really lightheaded, and I was, I had heat stroke a few times when I was in the marching band in high school. I carried these big drums because I'm a drummer. I loved the drum line and just being really loud. And that was so cool to be like connected on somebody, and you have all this music memorized, and then it became like, oh no, something's going on where I'm like too hot, even though I'm hydrated, and I'm sweating too much, and I feel like I'm going to faint. And I had to sit out a bunch of times, which is really, as a kid, you're like missing out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, maybe it's just because I gained some weight or I'm just unhealthy, which was also true. And because I got to be a pretty big kid. And then when I was 18, I moved to that west place I was just mentioning where it was warm all the time. And I lost 68 pounds in 3 months. And I felt just incredible. And I could move, and I was actually like feeling light. But then, so I guess you could say the symptoms of POTS were hidden because I got healthier and I lost a bunch of weight, but I don't think they ever went away. So let's go back to when I was an adult and I had that weird crampy feeling. Mm-hmm. And I was lifting a lot of weights and stuff. And with the POTS and that joint hypermobility, that's still a little mystery to me of how they're connected, but it's there and I know it exists. And I've seen enough, I've read enough, I've seen enough evidence that they're very correlated. So when I would be lifting more weight than I should, I would hear the joints, like collarbone, for example, and you're just like, uh-oh, like things would pop and snap, and then you would feel it. And then pretty soon, I've always had a curved spine, but eventually my head would go over like this, and I'd literally, things like that would just start to happen. And I'm like, what is going on? There's nothing I could do to fix it. So long story short, that's kind of the order it went in. And then it just evolved from there. It never got better. And I'd still say it hasn't gotten better. We as people just get better by learning about it and relearning, reteaching our bodies how to move properly so we don't hurt as often.
Yeah. So it's been like 10 years with the Fibro Diagnosis then?
The symptoms. The diagnosis, ironically, was only 2 years ago. Okay.
Tell me about that then, because everyone has like such different experiences and stories with a diagnosis, and it can be quite a painful, long process to get to.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have a cool story with that. Like, I don't like, I hear this all the time from the fibro community. It takes like 7 or 8 years to get a diagnosis. And that's true because you go through so many other things, because you don't want to start with, okay, we're going to see if you have fibro first before we check for like lymphoma, say, or, something serious, which is like a reasonable thing. But 8 years to me is a little too long. So when I was going through all this stuff in 2010, that was a really hard, brutal year because I was sort of where I was working at the time, I was training new officers, and I was sort of a role model. And then I started to suffer, and I had to hide it because I felt like, my reputation's on the line. I'm supposed to teach these people how to go out and defend themselves and restore order. And I can't even, I don't even know if I can do it myself. So I think in 2010, I had somewhere like 93 doctor's appointments, just trying to go in and telling people like, no, something's wrong in here. Like I would feel like I'm having a heart attack, what I would imagine a heart attack would feel like, with chest pain and just like extreme, the specific pain that I was feeling is called Costochondritis. And it's between your ribs, it's your sternum and your ribs where they all meet. And again, there's some joints and cartilage. I have joint problems, but I didn't know that at the time. And I just had this pain in my neck and my hands and my legs, and just all over, and it didn't make sense. And everybody keeps doing blood work and telling me I'm fine, get some massage, you're just stressed out. I was stressed. And we could talk about how that kind of comes into play too, because I think I was, dynamically within, I think I was changing because of the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And because, I was 22 trying to buy a house, going to get married, and trying to like live on my own and working. And I was a student. And then pretty soon I'm going to be a dad. So it was like I had a lot, all at once,
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure.
Big life-changing events.
Yeah, and you already take the pressure of the work that I was doing, which is kind of dangerous. Like you're dealing with people and they don't always like you, or, typically the people that you're going to go talk to or deal with at work are dangerous, or, you're there because there's a problem and you're trying to solve the problem. And usually sometimes that can be violent. And so there's already a lot of fear and a lot of stress, for, going to stop a car in the middle of the night by yourself at like 2 a.m. with 3 people in it with drugs and weapons, and nobody knows that you're out there but you. Like I didn't even have a lifeline on the other end of the radio a lot of the times. So it was like, if something happened to me, I guess they'd have to come look for me in the morning and just find my body there, or whatever. And so that alone, mixed with all those other life things, that was a lot of stress for 22. And at 22, we know everything. Right?
Oh, don't we just?
Yeah, and the truth is, like, and I could fake it pretty well, but I didn't know what I was doing. I could not handle that. I could not handle a lot of the pressure and stress that was put on me, because I was never taught, and I never bothered to learn either, how to deal with that stuff appropriately.
Yeah.
And there was no really, everybody I worked with there, all about 1 or 2 people were my age anyway, or younger even, which was even more strange. When I was 24 and all the new recruits are like 21, and we're all just kind of a bunch of kids trying to learn as we go. So the diagnosis was seeing too many specialty departments, checking for rheumatoid arthritis and all these things I'd never heard of before. And I remember that one particular, I think it was the 93rd, and that's probably why I remember it, because I was just at a loss and I was at wit's end and I was hurting every day. And it felt like, I don't even know if people are just not believing me anymore. And
you start to doubt yourself. You're like, am I making this up?
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if something was wrong with my brain that's just not interpreting my body correctly. Like I always knew I was a really sensitive guy to just feeling stuff. If there was sometimes I'd lay in bed and be like, I could feel the earth spinning. Like I can, with POTS too, especially, you can, when everybody knows this feeling, when you stand up too fast, you get kind of like, a little bit woozy and lightheaded. But there's times like that when I'm not standing up, where I can hear and feel like where the blood in my body is pumping. And so I'm very, very, almost too in tune with what's going on in here. And that's not always a good thing. So with that 93rd appointment, and I literally went in there and the doc is like, so I see you have all these appointments. I mean, what do you expect me to do here today? Because I got nothing for you. Your blood's fine. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. I think you're just stressed out. Like, you're damn right I'm stressed out. I haven't gotten a solid answer. I'm going to keep hunting. Like that's what my parents told me to do at the time. Just keep going. Somebody will figure it out. Okay. And I went out to my car and I was just so disappointed, and I had a flat tire. So now I'm like, and I'm crying at this point. Yeah. Like I was just so defeated. I'm like, because now I have to change this tire, and my whole chest feels like, it feels like glass, like broken glass. It just was horrible. And so I'm sitting there trying to change this tire, and it's just like excruciating and defeated because I didn't get any answers. And in fact, I just had to pay more money. So that's why, you'll hear people too in the chronic illness, chronic pain community that are all like, stand up for your patient rights and stand up for yourself and be assertive. And that's all true. There's nothing new I can tell you there, except to my biggest mistake in being so young was to just take their word for it. Oh, there's nothing you can do for me. Okay. Or like, we're going to do this test, right? I had too many tests to go through. One in particular was like, they put probes into your skin and check your muscles. They kind of shock you, kind of like a TENS unit does, to see if there's like neuropathy or something going on, and what's up with that. But you know why I did all of those is because they told me that's what we're going to do. And that's okay to an extent. But I think if you're on even your 10th or 11th visit with no results, I think it's reasonable at that time to be like, I'm not leaving this appointment until you at least tell me where you think I should go or what you think I should do, because I am having trouble making that decision myself. That's why I came to you. And I didn't know to say that to this person, right? The person that's telling me, what do you expect me to do here today? And that was kind of condescending, and I get it. You know, I'm 22. There's a lot of people that come in there for everything, or just attention, or they want a doctor's note. And I get that. I didn't at the time, but I've literally had to be the one to, you know, if I went to an appointment, eventually it got to the point where I started to know better. Like, it's when somebody's not doing you the service, and I'm not going to sit and like bash doctors and stuff, because I think they're doing, you know, they see you for what, 15, 30 minutes. I don't expect them to know my chart. And a lot of people get upset when you get in there and you have to explain my doctor doesn't know anything about me. It's all in. Yeah, but he also sees like 300 other people a day for more time. He sees me 30 minutes a month. I'm going to have to retell my story. So learn how to retell what's going on with you. Make it concise, because if you go in there with that list of 20 different things, that's not reasonable. They can't hit that in 15 to 30 minutes. So prioritize it. Explain, this is what I need to, or even, I don't know where to start with this. Here's the list. Even that's fine. And so just getting people, like I said, the 10th or 11th appointment, and you don't know what's going on, I think that's an indicator. Now we can agree that, okay, maybe it's fibro. Yeah. Instead of 93 appointments later, and also another, what was that then? 9 years before some doc is like, oh, I think you have fibromyalgia, dude. I'm like, what? Really? After all that, I could have just, and maybe you've had this experience too. There's no real, even the diagnosis of fibro itself is questionable.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the educated guess. You're not dying. I mean, everybody's dying, but you're not dying right now. It's not urgent, like it's not emergent. We've done XYZ tests over a period of X appointments, over a time span of X. So fibro is a pretty good, I mean, we're just going to go with that. And that's what happened. That's how I was diagnosed. But it also does, as much as it's questionable, it also makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like they do some things where it's like they touch certain points on your body, and if it's tender or painful, those are some indicators based on some studies in science that I can't recite because I don't remember. I don't care to remember. I have limited brain capacity. Okay, I'm a man, and so with fibro, I'm a man with fibro.
You're human. You're human.
Yeah. And so that's how it all came to be. And I think a lot of people have a similar story. So, you know, it's not like my life goal, but it is important for people like you and I and the other people that had wasted a lot of resources and time and energy on finding some sort of answer, or at least a plausible answer for what's going on. But I think it's up to us to like, hey, we got to tell somebody about this. You know, we got to at least give them a shortcut so they don't have to waste the time and the resources like we did. And I think we got kind of unlucky with where we were at, because 10 years ago, fibro was kind of deemed as like the middle-aged woman. At least here where I live, it was like the middle-aged lady kind of, okay, you might have it, you might not. It might not exist. And some people don't even to this day believe it's real.
Yeah. See, for me, it was a word I had never ever heard of in my entire life up until the point that you're like, I think we might have missed something here. And
Yeah.
I didn't. I was quite lucky in comparison, I think. Certainly to your situation, I wasn't going in repeatedly asking what was wrong with me. I was going into the doctor saying, this is how I'm feeling right now, so can you just give me this? And they would give me something. So I was going in for like IBS, depression, insomnia, to a GP, to a general practitioner. And then I was having prolotherapy for my back pain, which was the only thing that they could give me for my damaged discs in the bottom of my back. And it was at the review of that I started saying about pains in other areas, like in my knees. I was like, oh, I'm getting pains in my knees, assuming that was because my back was adjusting and realigning. So I thought that was like a compensatory thing.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, that shouldn't be happening.
That's funny what you said too about the depression and all that, like that. A lot of people don't know that that's part of fibro too.
Yeah.
Right? It's because you're hurting and you're trying to your brain can't figure it out. And we like to know why things work naturally. We're curious animals.
Intuitive.
And when we don't have the answer, it kind of eats away at you. So you give that, hell, you even give that a number of months and that's already having a pretty big effect on just your psyche in general.
So did the label help you? Did having the label of fibromyalgia help you to understand? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually happy with it. It was a big relief in a way. Like, I remember when we had a bit of a scare where, I was pretty depressed at the time. It was years ago, and the doctor's like, from what I'm looking at today, I think you might have lymphoma. We're going to do some tests. And I'm like, that sounds terrible, right? If you have lymphoma, we all know that's not good. But I was like, thank God, finally, just find the thing, right? So I can at least identify it. And I always joke, like, when I'm in ER or something, I'm like, why can't it just be a broken arm where we know the problem and you put a cast on it, you just suffer through the expected amount of pain that you can think of and just deal with it. It's always something more complex and mysterious. But the fibro, and a lot of people get down like, oh, I have fibro, I have another diagnosis. And it's just like, not me. I was like, okay, good. Because now when I feel the pain and I'm like, why? And I'm trying to think, why? What can I do? What did I do? It didn't make any sense. Getting frustrated. I think, it's just fibro. And then I can just move forward because I know it's fibro. And it's not a heart attack. It's not, I know the things to, okay, can I smile? Can I breathe? Yeah, I don't think I'm having my heart rate's pretty slow. Yeah, I have anxiety. I know that. I have fibro. I know that. So it makes it a lot more clear. And actually, in fact, that lowers the anxiety because you're like, I know I have fibro. I know I have anxiety. I'm going to get worked up when I don't know the answer. That's me. That's who I am. I'm this sensitive guy. And so that all helped when that guy finally was like, did some, I don't even remember the 2 or 3 tests he did. He had a little chart. He was like, fibro makes sense to me, and this is why. And I said, okay, your explanation is reasonable, and it's like I didn't see anything. I didn't have any sense of like a red flag when he was explaining it to me, and made total sense. So I'm going to go with that. And so when I got that, it's kind of like if you know, I relate it to this, and I hope people can understand this. If you've ever had a very intense workout in your life, just think of one time you really pushed yourself. Even if it was just like you're having fun or something, it doesn't have to be workout, but intense exercise, right? And you get to that point of fatigue where you're like, your brain starts asking you a bunch of questions like, dude, why are you doing this? Wouldn't it be easier to just stop? I think you could just stop. And you're just like, oh, you can't barely go on anymore. But then, so at that point, you either keep going and then you're like, wow, I did even more than I thought I could, which is badass. Or you don't, you listen to your brain, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to stop. Like, I can't do it anymore. I can't, you hear somebody stop running, for example, like, I just can't go any farther. Just can't, brick wall, right? So I relate it to this. If you have in your mind, before you do that, exercise, that intense workout, and you know that your mind, when it gets to that certain point of fatigue, is going to try and start asking those questions. It's going to try and turn it off. Like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. I don't have to be out here. I could be at home on the couch watching some show or do what. If we know that's going to happen before we get out there, and we can expect that, then there's a better chance that we're able to deal with that, shut it off, go a little bit further, and still achieve what we wanted to with that exercise. So using that example, if I know I have fibro, as I do something or before I do something, and I'm starting to feel it, I already expect what's going to happen in here. And now I can continue with my day or move forward because I already know what it's going to, I know the questions I'm going to ask myself. I know what it's going to try and get me to do. I know how my body is going to respond now.
Yeah.
It's not always the same. It's not always the same response. It's not always the same location of where the pain is. And that's okay. We don't need to dwell on that. And I think we need to give ourselves some time too. People with fibro in particular, you feel pain somewhere? Okay, I have fibro. But if I feel it there again consistently for like 2 weeks and it didn't go away, okay, then I think it's reasonable to make an appointment and go talk about it or something, because maybe there's something else going on. But we're so quick to like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, we're so quick to, is that a heart attack? My arm is tingling. It hurts all the way down my left arm. Like, you know, that's how my mind would work.
Yeah.
Now it's
you
like,
get used to a baseline, don't you?
Yeah. And now it's like, I have fibro. What if, okay, I'm just going to wait and see if this is still here. And, you know, I'll give it some days. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. Do whatever you want, but give it a reasonable amount of time where you can just step back and detach for a minute, right? And observe what's going on. And you don't have to be so in tune like I am. I'm that sensitive guy that feels every little thing, which is tough if you're like a hairy guy like me. It's like like I'm outside and the wind blows my leg hair just a little bit. I'm like, I feel that, you know. It's frustrating.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, exactly.